Podcasting 2.0 for January 21st, 2022, episode number 70, Testing the TAM. End of the week once again. Hello, developers, users, abusers. Welcome to the official board meeting of Podcasting 2.0, where we discuss everything that happened the past week in Podcasting 2.0, the podcast namespace, and of course, we're all the genius oozes at podcastindex.social. I'm Adam Curry here in the heart of the Texas Hill Country and in Alabama, the man who has an endpoint for everyone. My friend on the other end, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Jones.
Hello, developers.
Hello, developers.
It is freezing ass cold in Birmingham, Alabama. Let me tell you that.
What do you have there?
It was 25 this morning. It's up to 28 now.
Yeah, I don't think we have much better in Texas. All of a sudden it came in. What do we have? Yeah, we got 27 here.
Yes, it's gonna be like this all week.
Yeah.
This is not normal.
You know, the part that really sucks is I have my whole house generator sitting in my driveway on top of the crate, waiting for the guys to install it. You know, I'm very concerned about the timing of this.
What I thought you were going to say is, in true prepper fashion, is I've got my generators all hooked up and the power won't go out.
Thank you, Dave. That's what I wanted to say. Yes, obviously. I ordered this thing 3 months ago. It's been a bitch just getting it here.
I've got a year of freeze-dried food in the garage, and we won't have a pandemic. You know, it's like...
No, that actually, I read this great article, which is called, it categorized people like me, which I identified with it, as doomer optimists.
And that is exactly what you are.
Right? That's what I thought too. I'm like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I identify with this. I send you this article. And what it says is, Americans by definition are pretty good preppers, just because of the pioneering nature and our history. But that, the people who are prepping with ham radios in bunkers with stored food, and that's really not the type of preparation you want to do. You need to know where the local farmers are. Who are your neighbors really? You need to understand self-defense. I mean, all of these things, like getting a dog. I mean, these are the things that you really might need. Yeah,
you've got all that covered. I mean, you got the dog, you got Texas Slim.
And I've been, I got K&C Ranchers. I got everybody's all set up. The last bit is the electricity. And I've been looking at, I believe in electricity, just DC current that you can power stuff with. And, it's like, but the battery technology for any type of charging, the scenario that'll last you more than an hour really is inherently prohibitive, and it's just a pain in the ass. And I've been looking at, old-fashioned batteries, basically a water tower, where you have a little solar array that shoots water up into the tower, and then you use the water pressure as needed to drive a turbine that can power your house.
I've never heard of this.
Well, I mean, you've heard of hydropower.
Yeah, so you're pushing the solar array. Yeah, it makes enough juice to push the water up into the tower.
It trickles it. Yeah,
the sun.
It trickles it. Yeah, exactly. It trickles it up there,
and then it comes back down gravity feed to turn the turbine.
So you basically have a battery. You're storing energy.
It's a mechanical battery.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
This is the kind of stuff that the other way is, have you ever seen those beautiful windmills? It's called the aero motor. It's kind of the aluminum look that you see on farmlands all over the country with a weather vane. Yeah, with a weather vane on it. So that's another way you can pump the water up into the tower.
So how much what do those set you back? Like that thing? Is that like $100,000 or is it?
Oh no! What, one of those aero motors?
Yeah, those things.
Oh no, I priced that, and I think it's a couple grand. Let me see, if that even.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, it depends on how big you want it to be. Yeah, but they're everywhere. I'd have to look at it. Air motor or some crap like that has a weird air.
Yeah, we saw them in New Mexico. That they seem to be a lot of those in New Mexico.
Yeah,
when we were driving through there a couple years ago. There's no wind here in Alabama that's of any like dependability. So.
Oh, well, we got plenty of wind out here. Let me see. Order yours. Okay. Let me just take a look. Just since we're doing it, let me see if I can find a price for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Complete windmill 3,700.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
And then, of course,
probably what a solar array would set you back.
Yeah, and then of course you can go crazy with your tower. How high you want that? Obviously.
See, Alabama Power, our power company, has they've made sure that none of these schemes actually work because they charge you they charge you a surcharge.
Yeah, that's what California's doing now.
Yeah,
it used to be you could sell your energy back to the grid. Now they're taxing people because they have too much energy.
Yeah, that's the way it is here. Yeah.
What a scam. They really scammed everybody on that. It's horrible.
Well, it's the same scam as the electric cars. You know, get everybody to go electric car for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden, shocker, you realize you're not getting enough tax revenue from gasoline taxes.
Let's tax the EVs.
Tax the EVs.
Shocker. Hey, man, why don't you guys just print it? It seems to be so much easier. And it's working so well. It's working so... You know, there's two things I wanted to talk about. So first of all, just the realization, I had it just the other day, that when I was in the 70s, like early or like 71, 72, I remember my parents talking about inflation, but they didn't talk about it the way we talk about it today. So today we say, oh, it's 7% inflation, beef is more expensive, and, you know, and the beef is doubled, and gas is expensive, and, you know, it's based on the consumer price index, but that's what we consider inflation, is consumer prices going up. But back in the day, you know, this was after, you know, of course, we were 40 years or 50 years into the Federal Reserve Act and the idea that we were off the gold standard. And inflation literally meant that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury would be creating about 2% more money every year. That's what it meant. And everyone understood that. And everyone was always concerned about inflation, not concerned about the prices rising, because that would be the actual effect of inflating the money supply, inflation. Mm-hmm. And somewhere along the lines, we got psyoped into believing it's something else. And then you look at the money supply of the U.S. dollar, 40% was created in the last 18 months.
Yeah. It's so, you know, I don't think a lot of people stop to think about what inflation does. And there's a lot of good information about this within the Austrian world, is what inflation has. It's not simply rising prices because of a glut of money. That's just the technical, like, that's how it happens. That's the mechanism. But then the effect it has is devastating on an economy and at a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what happens is when you have inflation that outpaces savings in any way,
or wage increases,
it forces each person to take more risk in order to keep pace.
Yeah.
Because you have to save. But you can't just simply save. You have to save in ever increasingly risky ways.
Yeah, like fucking crypto.
Yeah, crypto. Yeah, exactly.
That's where we're at now.
you got 88-year-old grandmas who are having to watch the stock market.
Yeah,
and that's because of inflation. I mean, grandma should not have to worry about the stock market. She should be able to just have put her money in the bank for all these years and have something to retire on.
Yeah, remember a certificate of deposit?
Yeah,
remember those things?
Those are cute.
Yeah. But that, of course, is the follow-on effect from cheap money, etc. And then, you know, that cheap money pushing up stocks. And then what you're seeing now is you're seeing that start to unwind because the system is in trouble. Anyway, so I just wanted to point out that it's good for everybody, I think, to think from time to time about what inflation really means and not just, you know, what it results in. But
smartest people in the world.
Yeah. And the other one was the news about Netflix. And I think that will affect podcasting to a significant degree. So I wanted to bring that up.
They got hammered the other day. Their stock was down like 20%.
Yeah, 24 this morning.
Oh, my gosh.
And the reason is they poured billions of dollars. I think it might have been $20 or $25 billion last year into content. And of course they had hits. Bridgerton, many hits there. As I've always said, when you have a network, you're in a hits-based business. So you got to have a lot of poop for people to kind of lull through until you get your next hit. This is what it is. I've run networks. It's very hard to do.
That's in their prospectus. Poop.
Oh yeah, no, we have this. That's right there. It says one of our risks is we will have to make some poop too, or buy poop.
No, there's plenty of poop on Netflix. I've scrolled it.
What didn't carry over is the increase in users into this first quarter from last quarter, and of course, part of this has to do with people thinking differently about their lives in general, but maybe not having as much home time, etc. But it really freaked the market out, and what you'll hear everyone talk about is the TAM, TAM, and the TAM is the total addressable market. And so they're looking at the entire market for people who are interested in streaming services, and it looks saturated. It looks like, okay, and we'll see what the fallout will be from that, because some companies will not give a shit at all. But, I think Disney is also banking on it. Disney has less poop. They have evergreen poop, which the kids love. Everyone loves, and they do have some massive franchises. But I think what this will result in is far less podcast deals to try and because this is the business model of networks and the hits business is you sign a whole bunch of shows and then you find the one hit and you're gonna turn it into a TV show. I think these days may be numbered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's completely rational. I think that makes a whole lot of sense, because that number, that's what I've been thinking about. Everything has become about growth. And that's, again, another effect of inflation. Every industry is growth. Mm-hmm. And so what happens when you run up against that wall of market saturation where you literally can't grow anymore? And who knows where that is? That's a magic number that nobody knows for each product. Nobody understands what that number is going to be. I'm sorry. No, I was just saying what happens. I don't really know what happens. Everything just seems like Netflix seems to just take a hard U-turn and go straight back down.
Yeah, because there's no growth. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. If there's no growth, then there's no interest in holding that stock. And as I've maintained before, just look at the numbers. For my mind, it's a Ponzi scheme. You keep pouring billions of dollars on. They do $8 billion a quarter or something, but they outspend on creating poop. Yeah, and this is part of the beauty of I would say a lot of what's happening with people signing podcasts is, this could be, one of these could be a hit. One of these could be a TV show. And there's been many examples of that. And now that's going to decelerate. There's no doubt about it.
So I'm going to dig into this for 1 minute. So what about, let's just put a reality on it. Let's just say Spotify, they really, to me, it looks like they have essentially Joe Rogan is the cash cow. Call Her Daddy is, I don't know, something. I don't know if we have numbers on that show or not, whether it was a deal that.
Dude, they don't even give numbers on podcasting income. It's insignificant at this point. I don't think Joe Rogan is a cash cow either.
For that, I'm thinking about shows that are just simply profitable. Yeah.
Well, he's profitable from one way specifically. Is what is the acquisition cost of a user? And so if the $100 million number is right, I don't know. It's never really been confirmed. It's just kind of accepted. Then that would be $10 a user, because they claim they have 11 million people who listen to the Joe Rogan show. So I'll throw out $1 million and just keep it at 10. So it costs them $10 to get 10 million users per user. And that user theoretically pays $5 per month or more, either in subscription fee or in advertising revenue.
Well, point being that if you're that top heavy, and you have essentially one hit, or maybe 1.5 hits.
No, they have one. I think it's Rogan. I don't think that anything else is considered a hit.
Well, if Rogan, everybody seems to be befuddled by the fact that even the 270 scientists, quote unquote, that wrote a letter hasn't had an effect. Right? It's economics. It can't have an effect. If they were to do anything with Rogan, that's it. It's game over for the podcast side of that business.
Oh yeah. Then it'll close down. It'll be over right away. You're correct.
And the same thing worries me on the non-hit side when it comes to just the regular podcast advertising. Because every month I look at that chart of the biggest ad spends, and all at the top it continues.
You do
to
that
be
every
VC
month.
Money.
You do that
every time James publishes it.
Do you put on assless chaps and beat yourself while you're doing that? I don't know why I said that, Dave. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate.
I'm surprised you knew I had assless chaps. Yeah, but I mean, BetterHelp is the number one advertiser every time, and I'm like, okay, if this thing goes belly up, it's game over too. I mean, like, it's just
what is BetterHelp? Is that a mental health app?
Yeah.
Do you know how much money companies like that make? My buddy was asked to be CEO of Mindful, I think. Mindful is another one of these apps.
Mindfulness app.
They do $2 billion a quarter. $2 billion a quarter in revenue.
How much profit though? None.
Oh, it's profitable. Oh, it's profitable. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's just people and technology, and a little bit of technology to connect them.
I bet what they did was they figured out that there were so many people coming out of college with psychology degrees that had no prospects for a job. They just funnel them all into this app and pay them nothing, and then they're done.
And it's worse than that. This anti-work thing is being pushed everywhere. It may even be them doing that. Who the hell knows? But this healing communities and all this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, there's a lot going on. People are convinced they're very, very troubled. And it's sad because it's young people.
They are troubled.
Okay. Yes. Hey, where are we with everything this week? I got nothing on the list, which means I'm pretty happy.
Oh, I'm a disaster over here. You
got like real work stuff.
No, I mean just on my prep side, I've got, for the first time in 70 episodes, I do not have my notes written out beforehand. They're actually I usually list them out write it out on a legal pad, and it's spread out over like 4 different pieces of paper and another pad. But because I got so much to talk about. I mean, this week we had I started another purge of Spreaker stuff to match the Anchor stuff. And I don't even think we talked about the Anchor purge last week.
No, we didn't. And along with that also comes the breakage of their M4A files, I think, which I was reading about. Marco was
in Anchor
pretty huffy about that.
Well, I love this though, because this is confirmation of my theory that Spotify wants to ditch Anchor as a podcast platform. It seems like a money suck.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that they even like it anymore. I think the getting rid of RSS feeds as default was the first step, and each step along the way that they make one of these moves confirms that Anchor is just a dead man walking. I don't think it's a long-term viable option for them anymore. And I think they would love to just see it disappear. They really can't at this moment, but they can make it as unattractive as possible so that they continue to draw less and less interest in the platform.
Now, was this not,
one day they'll kill it?
Was this not their on-ramp into podcasting direct into Spotify? Wasn't that the concept there?
Well, the original concept, yes, that was the concept, but Anchor came out of social audio. That was their previous thing, was that you could like have a social network based on audio snippets.
Oh gosh. I mean, look.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And that's where, and all they did was add RSS feeds to that platform so that they became podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have so much garbage on there. Like a typical,
forgot about that.
A typical unlistenable podcast that got purged 2 weeks ago.
Do you have an example? Did you bring one today?
I had so many examples and I did not bring any, but like one of them was, I posted some on the Mastodon. One of them was just like 15 seconds of a guy talking about poop.
Wait a minute.
With a background soundtrack.
I have to get this now. So you purged a poop cast? That's I don't know, Dave. I'm questioning your choices here. It was like 15 seconds of a guy being like, "Hey, this is my first podcast," and hold on, I got to find this, man. Where poop? When did you post this? I'm looking for it now. I don't know. A couple of weeks ago. It's the poop. It's the poop cast. It was fantastic. But it was example after example after example of that kind of stuff. Some like a 12-year-old girl being like, "Here we go. Oh, this is cool," and that was it. Hold on, listen. Oh, what? Here we go. Play the trailer. All right.
Hi, you know me. Guess who's that? Slap. Okay. Bye.
That's it. That was the entire podcast.
But that's not the poop cast.
Oh, I don't know where the poop went. There was a bunch of poop ones. Like one of them had a poop emoji in the title. Yeah.
Why do people do that?
I don't know.
I know. I'll do a poop cast. Actually, Chris Brashears was one of the OG podcasters. He did the poop cast back in the day. This is when we were... Now, so podcasting started, a little bit of lore for you, and then I want to bring our guest in who's thinking, what the hell did I join up for here?
He's like, I'm on the wrong podcast.
Is this thing on? This was the days when we were, we didn't really have studios or equipment. I was building some stuff and trying to figure it all out. But I was doing sound seeing tours, I called them. I'd walk around with binaural mics and just different stuff, a little different from your traditional radio. I'd go flying, and people were doing different types of things. And Chris Brashears did the Poopcast, and he would literally talk about his poop. And at one point, and this is when I knew podcasting would take off, and this was just the best medium ever. He got on the roof of his house, made his wife put a target down below on the grass, and he pooped off the roof.
Oh my God.
I gotta find that episode. It was legendary. There was just something about it. I think you had to be there. That's pretty typical with poop stories. But it was it was pushing the envelope.
Wife for sticking around.
Oh yeah. Oh no, she got a medal for that. Absolutely. But everyone knew Chris. He's nuts.
I'm assuming that the album art for this podcast was the Bristol Stool Index.
No, I forget.
If nobody knows what that is, you can Google it.
I forgot what he had as art. Anyway, where were we? About growth. Yeah, growth. Yeah, growth. Yeah, I was going to say one final thing about that.
Yeah, sure.
So this kind of gets into growth, podcasting, and inflation. If I were to track the past 10 years of the No Agenda Show, which is a value for value podcast, just like Podcasting 2.0, the podcast, and the entire project, year over year, people have given us about between 12 and 18% more year over year. And as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking over a 10-year span, it's not that people appreciated us more. It's just that the dollar devalued.
Inflation.
Yes, that is inflation. Because I'm not like living high on the hog any higher than I was last year.
Right.
So I think there's your inflation. It may actually be that high. My situation has changed at some points throughout 10 years. My overhead has changed. I've reduced it significantly. Marrying a woman with money helped. Yes. She always chuckles when I say that.
That's my wife married me for my money too. Yeah. But that when you look around the industry and all the index funds and all the things that are like provide a quote unquote good return, whether they're in the market or whether they're in the equities or whatever it is. Like when all of them return roughly the same percentage, that's not quality of product or investment. Primarily, that's inflation.
It's just pure inflation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, shall we bring our guest in so we can chat some more podcasting?
Yeah, let's turn the corner and stop trying to stop trying to be Horowitz and talk about our guy.
Although I think our view of the market is a lot more entertaining.
Yes,
because we bring in poop. It's just how it's supposed to go. Today's guest in the boardroom, our assessor, if you will, is someone whose work I followed before Podcasting 2.0 because I was a user of his product, and it's dynamite, and he has an incredible niche of the industry. Very happy to have him here with us. Please welcome the founder, developer of PodLP, Thomas Barrasso.
Thank you. Excited to be here, and it's pretty funny. I can relate to the poopcast. I had a connection when I was an undergrad. I actually studied Viking poop.
Viking poop. Okay.
Okay. All right. Tell it.
Wait a minute. This is something you can study? This is can you get college credit in this course?
Yeah. I'll give you the LOL my thesis version. So basically, Vikings and their livestock settled in areas of Greenland and Iceland, and they pooped, of course, just like all of us. And those poop washed into water systems, and you can measure them over time through sedimentology. You can take sediment cores in lakes, and you can measure the concentration of fecal biomarkers and tell where people were when throughout history.
Wow, it's like counting the rings on a tree. We can count the poop rings.
Exactly.
So what were people eating?
Sorry, what was that?
I was going to ask what people were eating. What were the Vikings eating?
Oh, that's a harder question. That's the next grad student's project.
Oh, okay. All right. Dave, you had a question? I'm sorry.
This is just a comment, an observation, if you will. I did not come into this podcast today expecting to hear the term fecal biomarkers. That was not high on my list of what I thought I would hear.
Yeah, well, this is the most diverse boardroom in the industry, Dave. We don't mess around here. So, Thomas, tell us about your app and how it started, and maybe just give us a little background so everybody understands exactly what you're doing, because I think it's one of the most important apps for podcasting's future.
That's quite the superlative. I appreciate it, but yeah, I'm happy to give people some context. I know it's as you said, it's a pretty interesting niche. At least I think so. So yeah, at the start of the pandemic, like a lot of people, everything shut down. I didn't have a commute, so I just had a bunch of free time, and one of the many items on my infinite backlog of tech ideas that I could get around to at some point was to build a podcast app for feature phones, because I wanted to use one for going on camping trips, but with car commutes and stuff, you got to drive to campsites. I didn't want to be without something to listen to for that time, and I didn't want to deal with the hassle of downloading a bunch of MP3s and sideloading them before I go. So yeah, I ended up building the app for myself. But then as I went through the process, I realized the market was a lot bigger than I would have ever imagined. At the start of the pandemic, there was no podcast app available for the platform that I'm on, KaiOS. And then, yeah, I put it together pretty quickly, got it out there, and then kept iterating on it. But yeah, for people who aren't aware, think about your standard old Motorola Razr flip phone, not the new one that's touchscreen and Android, but the old school with the T9 buttons that you click around. Basically, they're those, but these days they're much more capable. They've got 3G, 4G. They can stream audio, video. They come pre-installed with YouTube and Google and Facebook. And now, there's PodLP for listening to podcasts.
Here's the irony, Thomas. I was a feature phone user prior to the pandemic. I was sick and tired of being tracked. I'd gotten rid of all iPhones. I never was really into Android. And I got the, what is it? Which thing
Alcatel,
the Alcatel Go Flip 3. The Alcatel Go Flip 3 from T-Mobile. I liked it because it had a hotspot. It did the basic things. Texting, of course, is a pain in the ass. It does have, predictive text, but it's still painful. But it's okay because I was just living my life. I was doing okay. And that's when I found PodLP. I'm like, this is so dynamite, because I was trying to get my hands on a Geo phone, which is the GIO phone, which is big in India. I'm like, that's an even better one. I was, just to get beyond the form factor of the flip phone. And so I was really enjoying the podcast app. And then the irony is we decided during the pandemic, let's start podcasting 2.0. I got so busy, I had to text more, and then I had to get a smartphone again. It's truly ironic.
Yeah, that'll definitely happen, and I can totally relate to it. I've actually got 2 of those geophones, the 1 and the 2, including the one that looks like a BlackBerry with a keyboard. But even that, I can tell you, it's not the texting machine that you would think it could be.
It's janky,
I'm sure. So
it's
small.
It's janky. So you're in the Kai store for KaiOS. I mean, how many downloads? How many people are using this thing?
Yeah, so in the last year and a half or so, we're on 2 markets, the Kai store globally and the Geo store in India, which is definitely the largest market. And we've got over 9 million installs around the world, over 175 countries.
Holy
You're the
cow.
biggest podcast app there is, brother. You're getting gypped. Wow.
Yeah, it's a large market. To put it into perspective, KaiOS, I think, has about 150 million monthly active users around the world.
Sure.
And they only, this is pretty crazy, but they're only 8% of the global feature phone market worldwide.
Yeah.
I think people, especially in Western markets, forget that that's the largest device category in the world.
So how long until we can do value for value on one of these phones?
I've definitely thought about it. I keep adding some of the podcasting 2.0 features, but until there's a Bitcoin wallet, I don't know if I'm going to be the one that's got the time to build it. It's web-based, so there's probably some way that you could connect it to an existing service.
Oh man, we have it all set up for you.
Expertise.
We have it all. We have everything for you. All you need to do is just connect. Right, Dave?
Yeah, that's it. Just
connect.
It's as simple as that.
Just connect. We got it all set for you. What's your problem? Just connect already.
Well, tell me this, Thomas. Is KaiOS your is it your daily driver? I mean, you live on this phone?
I don't anymore, to be honest. Similar to Adam. Basically, after launching this and having a bunch to deal with, it's pretty difficult to navigate them on a regular basis if you're going to be texting a lot. It's fine if you're going to be doing calls, if you're consuming audio and stuff. But I flip between them. I've got, I don't even know, like a dozen of these phones now. I got the new Go Flip 4. They're definitely getting better.
This is so cool because, we had, who do we have on last week? We had the RSS.com guys on, and they're storming the Latin American market. Everyone's dicking around here, waiting for Spotify to buy him. And meanwhile, there's this whole market that's opening up. It's very exciting.
So what do you think, Thomas? Is India, is that clearly the biggest market for Kai and for, Geo and those? I mean, is that clearly like head and shoulders above the rest?
Yeah, absolutely. India is definitely in a category all its own, and in large part to Geo and what they've done for that industry. Really rapidly, growing from 2G to 4G, over 100 million devices activated in like 2 or 3 years. So it's absolutely massive. And for us, it's an important market because it's one of the largest Anglophone markets, right? Most podcasts are still available in English, and English is still a major language in India.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is how do you handle your biggest market being a particular country or region? Do you take that into account when you feature podcasts within your directory? Do you say, okay, well, here's our biggest market, so I'm going to mostly put this type of content as sort of upfront?
Yeah, so we vary the content on the app based on a bunch of different parameters, the language, the country, things like that. And obviously India is one that we definitely prioritize when we're sourcing new content, it being the largest market. But also I think for a lot of people in a Western audience, I think maybe there's a lack of appreciation for the diversity there. With 1.3 billion people, and there's probably like a dozen different regional languages that each have almost 100 million speakers.
Yeah,
it's definitely like it's a very varied market, depending on where you are in India. And our audience is predominantly rural and pretty diverse. So it's a really interesting one to work with.
Thomas, who's this we you talk of?
It's the the hypothetical we.
No, I mean, is it just
the royal we? Exactly.
Well, I'm leading towards the question. You have 9 million of anything. You have a business technically. Are you making money in any way? Do you have any plans? Or are you just keeping this as a fun app? I mean, how do you look at this? Where do you stand in relation to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So most of our revenue comes from podcast sponsorships. So anybody who's interested in growing their audience globally, we can promote their content. The number one spot's on our homepage, and it shows up. The first thing that users see, that's something that can generate often many thousands of listens in a single day. So that's definitely the key prime spot for us. We can also promote content anywhere else in the app. We can promote it in category pages, search. We can promote it on other parts of the homepage. So there's definitely ways to promote content, and that's really been how we've been able to afford to grow and scale.
Now, is this you have a day job, or is this your full-time occupation?
Yeah, I have a day job, so I do this basically, early in the morning and in the evenings or weekends.
Like you're a true podcasting 2.0.
Yeah,
not sustainable.
Afraid to commit to poverty. What's wrong with you?
Yes.
Hey, that's cool, man. So I would definitely be interested in buying a position for one or two of my podcasts. So send me your rate card. I'd love to take a look at it for sure.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
I mean, I think that's a really especially with value for value. There's so many opportunities app developers can be taking advantage of with content. People, It's like when Abel and the Wolf released their value for value album on Christmas. I mean, I just miss I miss the promotion from Oscar Mayer. I miss the Breeze hyping it. And that all could have been settled with value block splits. I mean, there's just so much that we can do. So I love an entrepreneurial developer who's saying, hey, I can make some dough this way and build a business, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good way of putting it. And for us, I think it's very organic, right? We get to help podcasters connect with a new audience, and we get to help, an audience of predominantly first-time internet users find, new and engaging content that they can learn from, that they can be entertained by. So it's definitely something that's been, really, really awesome to watch as it's been over a year now.
I want to ask you about your developer chops here and what you got going on. So what I know KaiOS is mostly HTML5 environment. So how do you develop an app for that? What does your development environment look like? And I know that I have no experience other than I downloaded the simulator the other day to try to get PodLP up and running in a KaiOS simulator and failed epically to do it. It was a horrible disaster. But like what is the language that you write in? What does that look like? And then what tools do you use?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because it's definitely been a challenge. I think it's easier today, but yeah, the simulator I wouldn't recommend if anybody's looking to get into that area. I would say just get a hardware device. They're pretty affordable. You can get them in the US for, I don't know, as low as like $20-$30 for some of the really crappy cheap ones, and some of the nicer ones around $100. So yeah, I would say get a hardware device. Don't waste your time on the simulator. And then honestly, it's been a large part of self-discovery. So there's documentation, of course. I find the documentation to be pretty incomplete, as it often is.
Surprise.
And so you end up having to actually just sort of like, you get a device, you poke around, you learn how the APIs work. You have to do a lot of testing to see which devices have which APIs where and when. And yeah, so it's a lot of self-discovery. In terms of the environment, though, it's for PodLP in particular, it's all JavaScript. It's a Svelte single-page app. So we built in particular in Svelte because I wanted the app to be really small, because these are pretty resource-constrained devices. So the entire app with all of its resources, images, JavaScript, styles, etc., is just over 400 kilobytes now.
I can hear Stephen B. screaming at the top of his lungs, Svelte! Yeah, the Svelte evangelists may rival only the Rust evangelists in their ability to constantly talk about Svelte. That's been my experience. What is your so you test all on hardware? What's the biggest sort of pain point or constraint that you deal with? Is it screen size and the variance of all the different devices having different screens? Is it storage, bandwidth, lack of a keyboard, low memory? Like what what is your biggest obstacle that you're kind of constantly battling?
That's a really interesting question to tackle. I think there's definitely a lot of challenges. Some of the ones that seem apparent, like screen size, are actually not really all that challenging to navigate. And all the KaiOS devices have the exact same screen size, same screen resolution. So they largely have the same hardware, which definitely helps standardize things.
Oh,
I would say more than anything, between podcasting's lack of uniformity and KaiOS's lack of uniformity, it feels like early days of Android. There's a lot of fragmentation, and so you end up having to build a lot of checks in place to say, like, if this is available, do this thing. And the same goes for podcasts, right? Like, I think I was looking at using the enclosure length attribute as something I could display for the size of a podcast. And
if then, of
course,
it's
there. But even sometimes it's set to 0. I found somewhere it's set to like 1 or 2 or 3, which it looks like a real number, but that's not, you can't have, I think I looked this up. The MP3 header size is at least like 24 bytes or something.
Welcome to Dave's nightmare.
Yeah, I had an email from somebody the other day saying, "Hey, I just started using the API, and I've noticed a bug. A lot of the durations in the results are coming back as 0." I'm like, "Well, that's because they're not in the feed."
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So between KaiOS and podcasting, it's definitely been a challenge dealing with the lack of completeness and uniformity.
So what have you implemented tag wise? Have you done the alternate enclosures?
Yeah, so we have alternate enclosures. There's I have to go look now. We've got funding, location, person.
Wow.
There's just recently, I think it's we've got transcripts, so those actually show up both live. You can have them read live, or you can read them all.
Dynamite!
Oh, wow.
Hey, can you search them?
You can't search them yet. No, okay. That's next iteration.
Yeah, I use that every single day. Every day, I'm like, oh man, I think here's my process. Like, there's some news item, and then first I'll go to bingit.io, which indexes all of my show notes. I'll find, I think it was this episode. Then I'll go to that episode, pop open the transcript and search, and then click listen. And then I can find a clip, or I can find almost anything. It's, as a research tool, unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That, I think search plus chapters would be super powerful. Definitely something I've got on the backlog. But I don't think these devices come with search by default. So it's a pretty non-standard interface to begin with.
Right.
Well, that's an interesting question.
There's no control F.
Yeah, right. Well, so 2 questions on that topic. One is, how do you manage this lack of a keyboard? Because everybody, I'll tell you, I've known 2 people so far. With Adam 3, I've known 3 people so far personally that have tried to go daily driver with a phone like the Alcatel. And the thing that always makes them bail out is how difficult it is to text. And so the keyboard, the lack of an on-screen keyboard or a physical keyboard is like this deal killer for a lot of people. Do you do anything special to try to make it easier for people to do, like autocomplete search terms or anything like that? Like, how do you deal with that?
So we don't have autocomplete yet with search. Unfortunately, it is still pretty. It's T9. It's still a pretty manual process for actually typing stuff out. So I don't think there's anything unique in that front. But I would say the rest of the application is actually probably pretty comparable in terms of discoverability for what you'd expect other apps, right? Scrolling is not really that different than holding the down key. It's really not all that, it's basically like a TV interface. If you think about a TV remote, it's basically got the D-pad navigation, and that's what these phones are. You can discover pretty easily, but you go to try to, search for something on Netflix, and it's the pain. You got to go through this keyboard and you're moving left and right. It's the same interface problem. I don't think there's anything unique that we've solved in that front.
Yeah. Do you have OPML import if somebody's coming from another app?
No, not yet. And it was mostly because it was the first and for a long time the only app. So we were the only other one out there. But it's definitely something that I like a lot of things. I've got a long list of things to get around the building.
Yeah. And one other thing on the search thing, as far as indexing, is everything, since it's HTML5, is everything just local storage or index DB or something like that on the app? Is that what you're dealing with for storage?
Yeah, there's a couple of different storage classes. Those are obviously available. The only caveat that I would add to that is you have to be pretty cautious and conservative about what you store in these phones, because they often have very limited storage capacity. You're rarely guaranteed to have more than a couple megs at most, and sometimes you don't even get that. So you have to you have to have the app work regardless of whether you can store. And then for downloads, it's a whole different system. They have a KaiOS specific API for creating files, and we do that to stream podcasts in chunks and then save them locally to an MP3 file on the device, and then you can play that back.
What is the typical bandwidth in India for one of these phones? What kind of throughput are they getting?
Yeah, they're all 4G LTE, so they're pretty capable. They can on the low end, I think the minimum bar that they set is something around 10 megabits, and then on the upper end, they can get to 3 digits sometimes.
India being such a huge market, there's got to be a way that I can sell you curry.com for way too much money. Hey, podcast.curry.com. It's hot, people.
No, the British would buy that before the.
I've had inquiries. Yes, I got pretty far one time, but
your whole world would collapse.
I know it would.
You can't do it.
There's so much tied to curry.com. I would be so screwed. Yeah, it's not a good idea. You're right.
Are you using the API at all, Thomas? The Podcast Index API?
Yeah, so I actually just added it like a couple of weeks ago, maybe over the Christmas break, to the back end. It's the first time. So it's kind of funny. When I first launched PodLP, one of the things I was doing was basically following my curiosity. I had no idea how podcasting worked, and then I learned about RSS, and I was like, oh, where do you get these feeds? Then I learned about directories and indexes and stuff, and I sort of like organically discovered over time. But then you guys came out a few months after I launched, and I was like, damn, if you guys had, if the timing had worked out differently, I wouldn't have bothered building all this stuff. But in retrospect, I'm glad I did, because there's so many unique capabilities that we need that, I don't think Podcast Index is doing, and frankly, nobody's doing, because we're the only ones who have to care about this stuff.
Yeah, that really is the best way to go, is to have your own back end, and that way you can sort of take the raw data coming out of an API like Podcast Index, and then like filter it into what you need for your app. Yeah, that's definitely the way to do it.
The funding tag is cool that you have that in there. I just happen to know that PayPal will not accept money from India. So we've had people try to send us donations, not to this show, but to No Agenda, from India, and it always gets rejected. Not allowed from your country.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, they surface basically just as links, and there is no PayPal app on KaiOS. So I don't know how many people. It's probably not the right market if you're looking for a large volume of people funding via PayPal.
On that note, something I should ask more developers. What do you do to track behavior? Do you track behavior of your users, how they're using it? How do you extrapolate that? Do you use that in your iterations?
Yeah, so get a very basic set of analytics in terms of tracking behavior. It's events based, so we can track how many subscriptions are coming in, how many listens, things like that, because it's all the API that we control every time. Like, we've got a standard URL that you get for every time you want to get an enclosure URL, and it just redirects to the enclosure URL, and so that allows us to just count the number of listens that we get and track what podcast is being listened to. That means that when we work with sponsors, we can tell them, if you run a campaign, how many listens, how many downloads, how many subscribers do you get from your campaign? What's the conversion look like? Okay. But it is pretty basic. It's not like and it's all anonymous. So there's no sign up, there's no email, there's no phone number that you provide. Pretty basic anonymous analytics.
Yeah, what I was thinking more is, I think some of these SDKs that are out there for iOS and Android, which I think are developed by Facebook. They put all kinds of interesting metrics in there that you can see how people are scrolling, what they're stopping on, how fast they're going. Is that available for KaiOS at all?
Definitely not provided by KaiOS. There might be some sort of web framework that you could use. I I tend to err on the side of being a little bit more mindful of privacy and security. So I don't know that I would want to be that invasive, but yeah, I think it's definitely, if there's something interesting that I could glean from it and do it in a way that's doesn't hurt performance and doesn't impact privacy, then I would consider it.
It's interesting that it doesn't exist at all. And by the way, I'm very happy. I think that's the worst part of app development is the only way you can really understand how people are using your app is by installing that SDK. And of course, that reports everything to Facebook.
Yeah, the telemetry.
All the telemetry. Telemetry, that's the word I was looking for, yeah. Wow, man, congratulations, Thomas. That's quite an accomplishment. I just love that you saw that opportunity, and I saw it's a great piece of software. I haven't used it for a bit because I haven't used that phone, but it's a great app.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it, and I think it's anything I can do to help educate folks. I think people forget that just how important this market is, right? I mean, even in the United States, there's still millions of people using feature phones every day, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. Some people use it by choice, and some people, that's their limitations or their capabilities. My grandparents had flip phones, and that they would never graduate to a smartphone. You couldn't pay them to.
Yeah.
Since it's such a new market, is there an opportunity here to promote? And Dave, we should probably talk to Buzzsprout and RSS.com and those guys about it. Is there an opportunity to promote podcasting 2.0 authoring features so that this relatively emerging new market can start out of the gate with some modern shit and not just kickstart that? Because it seems that if creators are aware of the app, and they must be, if there's some messaging there like, hey, you can do better. You can do better than the West.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Something like that.
I think everybody is so locked in on, on the standard smartphone platforms that when you imagine a podcast app, you don't imagine in your head, most average humans are not going to imagine, at least in the US, they're not going to imagine something that looks like a KaiOS screen.
No,
they're definitely not. But if you do, it sort of changes your perspective on things, sort of like being aware of bandwidth limitations makes you see a need for something like alternate enclosure. I mean, on that sort of vein, Thomas, what is the biggest thing that you can think of when it comes to the way feeds are constructed or delivered that is a problem for what you're trying to do? Like, what do you constantly run up against when you're transmogrifying a feed, a podcast, into something that can run and display efficiently on a small screen like that?
Yeah, I think it always comes down to size at the end of the day, whether that's the size of the RSS enclosure, like you mentioned. So having alternative enclosures is huge. It makes so much sense to have adaptable bit rates, just because devices like this, and probably other devices worldwide, even your smartphone on 3G, doesn't really need to be streaming the highest bit rate if it's going to cause jank and lag and buffering. It'd be better to stream a lower bit rate and stream it smoothly. Same with podcast images. That's an exciting one for me. The ability to have a right size thumbnail that I don't have to generate and host myself would be really powerful. Everybody's posting 3,000 by 3,000 images for the latest iPhone, which is great, but that'll crash one of these phones. You can't display that on a screen that's 1/10 the size.
Oh man!
So those two are powerful. And then just thinking about and being mindful for like the length of titles. I even noticed this. I was listening to Podland recently, and it's great, but some of their titles are like 15 lines. On
it scrolled phones. Off on my screen too on Podfriend. I saw the same thing.
Is a buffer overflow the stack?
Something like that, yeah. And it wraps around to the next line, goes over timelines and shit. Yeah.
That's funny.
Hey, we're in a burgeoning industry here. It's all fresh for everybody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is the image art size for that you? I guess you scale everything down to a standardized size.
Yeah, I scale everything down to 128 pixels, and it was pretty arbitrary, to be honest. These phones are 240 by 320. I just wanted something that was large enough that I could scale it up a little bit if I needed to in certain contexts, but most of the time it occupies, maybe a quarter of width at most. And so it's just something it was going to be small enough, not too small. And usually with that size, we're able, I think if I look at my stats, I average like a 93% file size reduction in thumbnail images by scaling them down that way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Have you been to India?
I have not. There were plans to, and then the pandemic. And so
of course. And in India, you die and they burn you outside. So don't go.
But are you concerned at all about the long-term viability of KaiOS as an operating system? I mean, I know there's some. I know it's been around a while, but I also know that I think this is accurate from what I remember, that Google provides like half their funding or more.
Yeah, I don't know if I know Google's invested in them, so I
think they put $12 million in or something at some point, if I remember.
Yeah, I don't know what portion of their funding is attributed to companies like that. I would say I'm not too concerned about it, and there's a couple of reasons. One is that telcos worldwide are moving towards 4G as a minimum standard going forward. There's 2G, 3G network shutdowns across the world and even here in the US. And the other reason is there's still half of the world's population unconnected to any form of networked device, whether that's a phone or a computer or like any internet capability. And so when people think about, a lot of people talk about the feature phone market as being something that's sort of transitionary or temporary. It might be, but it might not. I frankly think we're talking about decades before we're anywhere near, having everybody on a smartphone with electricity and internet and all of that. So I think there's a long way to go.
I remember now, it was $22 million that Google invested in KaiOS, and they did it to have, the integrate Google Search, Google Maps, YouTube, Google Assistant. Now, Google Assistant on KaiOS is quite impressive. But of course, anyone who's using, in America, a feature phone is anti-Google. Probably doesn't really want that feature. But I remember the Google Assistant being really good.
Yeah, I think, Dave, you were asking a while ago what we're doing about search, and that's actually one of the answers to that. On Geo, they have their own version of this, and in the US and around the world, they've got Google Assistant. You can hold down the center enter button, and I think after 2 or 3 seconds, a microphone will appear, and you can speak what you want. So I could say, podcasting 2.0, and then it'll put that into the input box, which is really powerful, like you were saying. Whether or not you like Google, it's a really nice feature to have.
Yeah.
And they make that. Where does that API come from? Is that something that KaiOS baked in on Google's behalf, or is that
for $22 million? For $22 million, that's why they baked it in.
Do it.
Hello,
I'll do it.
hey, Google, we'll bake you in, no problem. We'll bake you into the cookie dough, but we'll bake you in.
Yeah, it's just part of the standard framework. If you have an input element, it's just there. I think you can disable it if you want to. So, if you want to get rid of that feature, and then they show a microphone icon, and that's actually a shadow element. If you're talking about how that's implemented, like in the Shadow DOM, you can see that it's just like another, a GIF or an SVG or something that they load over the input.
It just blows my mind that on us, you'd have a feature phone that has all this limited hardware, and the choice you make for that platform as the OS is essentially like a deconstructed browser, instead of something like, some sort of real-time, or not real-time OS, but some sort of embeddable OS like QNX or 10Cent? I forgot what Samsung's thing. Like there's a lot of these embeddable OSs, and it's funny that what you get with KaiOS is essentially a browser. But if you can do it that way, it makes so much sense, because you just get all this sort of stuff for free. You get really good layout with CSS, and you get all the standard browse, and you also get instant developer support, because any front end developer could really kind of just understand it, even if the documentation's not that great. It makes so much sense, but it still kind of blows my mind that you can cram a browser into such limited, constrained hardware.
Yeah, the history, it's based on Firefox OS, so under the hood, it's really just running the Firefox browser. And it's, like you said, I think it's really interesting, especially when you look at the newer devices coming out. They're they're pretty smooth now. You know, the early devices like that banana phone that you might have had was a little janky, but they've come a long way.
The Nokia 8110.
Yeah.
Oh, I have 5 of those. I ordered them all from China, and none of them worked on the U.S. networks. But they were like $30. Like, oh yeah, there's the new Nokia, and I got the one from the UK. No. And even though they said, oh yes, work in America, very good. That's a perfect system. He said with a racist accent. And it didn't, of course. But man, I love that. I had the original one, the Matrix phone.
Oh yeah, they're collector's items at this point.
Yeah. There was Nokia had a phone that fit in the palm of your hand back in the day. Do you remember that one?
It sounds like a lot of them.
No, but I mean, it was miniature. What was the miniature Nokia?
I don't remember the Nokia one. I had an Ericsson that would fit in the palm of your hand. That was so tiny.
This was even smaller. This was the 3310 Mini. I think
3310.
Yeah, it fits in between your thumb and your forefinger.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Nokia.
Yeah, you could barely make a phone call. It was impossible to text. Yeah, it was impossible to text. They have a Mini 2021 now. What is this? Is it also a Mini? Oh, I can't tell. No, that's a smartphone. Yeah, no, it was good times, man. Good times.
Wow. Yeah, that device looks crazy. Now next they got to get that to run KaiOS. And then
right? How does that work?
Trouble.
Yeah, exactly. How does that even work?
Your album art can be 64 by 64
pixels.
Pixels, yes.
Sounds about right.
So what does your device lineup look like? I mean, you said you had an array of phones. How do you make sure that it looks decent across everything? Do you have to, I'm assuming here, since you don't use the simulator, that you have to unplug, replug, build, unplug, replug. I mean, like you have to go through this pop scenario.
Yeah, so one of the things that I did was spend the time to make sure that the app works, the same build works on all environments. It doesn't matter whether it's a Geo phone, doesn't matter if it's a KaiOS phone, doesn't matter if it's KaiOS 2.5 or 3.0. So it's the same build that runs everywhere. And that took a little bit of extra time to do all of that sort of, environment detection at runtime. But it definitely helps me because I don't have to then spend all this time thinking about managing 5 different builds. And then my lineup literally got like these things sitting on the floor. I've got the 8110 4G, the Matrix phone in yellow. I've got 2 Geo phones. I've got 2 Alcatel flip phones. I've got one from Europe that was, I don't know how it was like a prototype model that was on eBay that I saw and I bought. It came pre-rooted, which was amazing. I didn't have to do anything. It like came with SU installed. Yeah, and then I've got a couple others. I got like this blue phone that's an absolute piece of trash. It sells for like $30, but PodLP sounds awful on it because it's got, I think, a mono speaker on the back, and so you listen to it and everything sounds like you're listening to tinfoil. But yeah, using that whole array, it's pretty easy to test. And then I don't always test it on everything because the screen size is the same for every device, or screen resolution rather, not size. So yeah, I don't usually have to do too much in terms of layout conformity, but definitely some around like feature capability. I always test in the Geo phones,
performance and that kind of thing. Yeah. So if the screens are the same resolution, I guess they just stretch them and sort of adapt them to a little bit different format.
Yeah, every screen is 240 by 320, and then the only exception to that rule is the Geophone 2 with the keyboard, which is just flipped. It's 320 by 240.
Oh, it's sideways. Okay, I got you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's you essentially got. It sounds like what you have is like an old school like a garage band pedal board with like all this lineup of devices on it, like distortion pedal, flanger. That's funny.
Yeah, I definitely. You were talking about the different OSs, and I have a couple other Nokia phones, and I've been thinking someday about trying to make one for one of those real time OSs, something with like 8 megabytes of RAM. How would you even make that work? And so that would be a really interesting challenge to have to work through.
Assembly language, all assembly language.
Sounds maintainable.
Yeah, it does. So do you have like some kind of build pipeline that you have where you like push out a build and it adapts it for each one of those different devices? You said so that you don't have to build uniques.
It's the same build everywhere, so it's the same compiled JavaScript, whether it's running on one phone or the other. So that's pretty easy to manage. And I use Rollup for the build process, which I think is fine. I haven't invested too much time into the different tools, but I know at one point I used to use Webpack. There's like a million out there now.
No, Webpack. I hate that thing so much. Sorry to all the JavaScript guys, but Webpack's a steaming pile of garbage.
Oh, this developer talk is so sexy. Keep going.
Sorry. I cede the floor to you.
Well, no, I guess the before we get to our break here and thank a couple people, is there anything else that we could do to make it more efficient for you?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think you've already done a lot, like I mentioned, through alternative enclosures and images. I'll have to give it a little bit more thought, but I think I definitely see it going in the right direction. There hasn't been, I haven't supported every tag yet, partly because of time and partly because some of the constraints on these devices, like real-time streaming, is definitely a whole different can of worms than just loading like an MP3. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think if anything, it's just the awareness of this will help podcasters understand. And then at some point, I'd like to help build tools to show people what it would look like on PodLP or other apps so that they can get an appreciation for the many different places their podcast could be. And that'll help them think about like whether you're talking about names or descriptions or images or anything like that. I know like Pod News, for example, they were doing podcast images, and it's really cool how they adapted the logo to go from one that includes like word marks and a full detail to one that when it gets scaled down to like 300 or less is just iconography.
Oh, I love that. I love it when people take time to really care about the different sizes and they don't just run it through
James is good like that. He's very good about stuff. Because I think the RSS generator creates one thumbnail, but I probably haven't really focused on, as a creator, I haven't been educated, I haven't been schooled exactly on, I understand the concept. Let me just see, because we have it podcasting 2.0. I think we had, one's auto-generated. What size is it? And I guess I can put more in. And so is there standard, here it is. I've got, what is this?
You talking about the Genie?
Yeah, exactly. The 816 pixels. That's the width. I'm not quite sure I understand all of this. So, but I can add one here. So what sizes do you need so I can do this the right way? Or how do I find out about this? So I put that in all of my, so I put it in all of my, my systems.
Yeah, I think podcasting, the 2.0 icon scales down pretty well just the way it is. But if you're a podcaster out there and you've got like word marks or like really detailed images where you need to see sort of the nuance, but just scale it down to 300 by 300 and then scale it down again to 128 by 128 and see what it looks like. And if it looks good on your computer, then great. It's probably fine. If it's like a really, high key sort of saturated icon based image, it'll probably be fine. But if you've got like a really detailed photograph that you're using, maybe of a person or a place, just think about what that will look like when you scale it down to something like 128. And if it doesn't look right, then you might need to make some changes to how it'll get presented.
You know what would be great is to have like I don't know if you do stuff like this, Thomas, but have like some kind of blog post or something where you sort of go over a thumbnail sketch of what the perfect set of constraints for an RSS feed would look like to be presentable on PodLP. So
to 9 million people.
Size. Yeah. It's image art of this size, album art, this resolution, use the images tag, use alternate enclosure with the specific bit rates. Like something like that would be fantastic if you ever had time, because then we could, push that out there and make people just raise awareness that this is such a big market.
That's a great idea. Yeah, we've got a blog at blog.podlp.com. Definitely could use more love. I don't post there very frequently, so that's a good one to post about, to show both the imagery, like you were saying, and then sort of behind the scenes what that would look like. Right now it's a little bit tricky because I don't think I know of a podcast host that supports images, but I also don't see why they wouldn't moving forward, because at the very least, if all you do is scale down the album art, they're going to save money on bandwidth in the future. Because if you click in and all you see is the thumbnail and you don't go to the details and load the full image, then that's, like I said, 93% of bandwidth on that image that they're not loading and paying for.
And I encourage you to highlight any of the podcasts that show all of the tags in use on the KaiOS device. There's this very popular Indian podcaster. His name is Curry, and he has a number of podcasts. And you should consider highlighting some of those shows to show off what podcasting really can do.
That's the owner of curry.com, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hello.
I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, I heard that somewhere. I don't recall.
But in all seriousness, and this is something you probably should ask all app developers, is any time that you can highlight any podcasting 2.0 compatible show, and maybe say, hey, look at the future of podcasting. This is what you can do now. Hey, are you a podcaster? You can do this. Learn more here.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I remember pinging your Twitter handle. I think maybe Dave, you responded when I was starting to build some of the support for different tags. I was like, hey, what podcast do I use to test this on? Like, is there one actually out there that I can use?
I don't remember which one I gave you. Probably John Chidgey. Because he's a bigger builder at the beginning than we were.
Yeah. We finally got all the tags. So yeah.
I know you got a hard out, Thomas, coming up. And do we want to go ahead and thank some people?
Yeah. Do you want to hang around while we do this, Thomas? We can say goodbye after that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. This is the most fun part of the show.
It is.
This is a value for value project. The whole project is value for value. So not just the podcast, but everything that you heard us talking about is all supported by people who either want to support the project or are in the project. That's where most of our support comes from. And you can do that through a number of means. You can boost us through any modern podcast app at newpodcastapps.com. But we also fully accept fiat fund coupons, so as long as they're good, through our PayPal, which you can find at podcastindex.org down at the bottom, big red donate button. Who do we thank this week, Dave?
Well, right out of the gate, Marco Arm at $500.
Yeah,
every
beautiful.
Month. Yes,
every month, man. Thank you so much, Marco.
Yeah, and I'm hoping. So I'm pretty sure he said he was working on chapters a while back. Soon as he puts in the first podcasting 2.0 tag support,
it's all over. It's all over.
I'm going to work. I'm going to work hard on getting him on the show so we can talk about it.
That'd be cool. This is that would be a good get, as we say in the business.
Yeah, he does. I think he does shows every now and then. Yeah, not very often, but yeah. Thank you, Marco. I really appreciate it. That's one of the biggest sustaining donations that we have on a monthly basis. This is all over the map. I usually have everything nice and separated, but it's just a big pile of paper right now. Michael Goggin gave us $5. And I think Michael Goggin, he's a monthly supporter. Thank you, Michael. Charles Current gave us $5. That's a monthly donation.
Yeah, these matter a lot. That's a whole server.
Yep. It is, the $5 servers. $5 pays for one of our
ingesters,
Manticore, one of our Manticore search boxes.
Hey, and even is there any inflation on that yet from Linode?
No, they were. They've somehow managed to resist the inflationary pressures.
Oh, good.
It's PPP money. They got PPP money. Chris Bargeron sent us $25.52. Nice little new. What do you call it? Numerology?
Palindrome.
Palindrome. That's it. He says, "Go podcasting."
Oh, indeed.
Go podcasting. Thank you, Chris. Timothy Hudgens, my buddy, gave us $25. That's a recurring monthly. Thank you, Tim. Might be seeing Tim tonight. I'm not sure. David Woodfine gave us $3. That's a monthly.
Thank you, David.
We got a new automatic. Got a new monthly subscription from, and I'm thinking this is. It's Dutch. Okay. Yeah, $1 a month, but his name is Vessel Troost. Is that right?
Vessel, the first name. What's the last name? How do you spell it?
Troost. Troost.
Yes.
Vessel Troost. Is that perfect? Did I nail it?
Yeah, you nailed it. Nailed it. You're a Dutchman now.
Okay. He's from the Netherlands.
Thank you, Vessel.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Survive on the Mastodon. Survive Vash. He gave us $5. That's a monthly donation. They're still working on their podcast system there.
No, what are they working on?
I had a meeting with him. What's the name of his company? Is it?
But you had a meeting and you didn't invite me?
No, this was like 2 months ago. Just like a Zoom thing.
Just fucking with you, man.
I'm not allowed to have meetings.
Not allowed to have meetings without me. No.
Yeah. Let's see. Keith Gibson, big supporter for a long time, gave us $50. That's a $50 a month subscription.
Keith.
Thank you, Keith. Dwayne Goldie, long timer, $8 a month. Thank you, Dwayne. Paul Erskine, $11.14. That's another monthly. Thank you.
Interesting number.
Thank you, Paul. He said it added up at the end of the year. You total them all up, and it adds up to something.
He's got an annual donation. Got it. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Here we go. Benjamin Bellamy, our buddy.
Yes, of
gave us $50. He gave us $50.
Oh, thank you.
Says, thank you for your unwavering dedication to keep podcasting open. Happy Podcasting 2.0 year. Go podcasting. Viva la boost.
Yes.
Go podcasting.
And now, as the French say, it is time for le boost.
It must hurt a Frenchman to do the accentuated French accent as a gag. It must hurt him. That's really appreciated, Benjamin. Thank you.
I think he gets loads of amusement from it.
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, the French are so much smarter than we are. He's just above it. Oh, yes, I make them laugh. Yeah. Those little American podcast peoples.
Plebes.
The podcast plebes.
Okay, we've got those are our PayPals. We got some boostergrams though. We got we've also got a new jingle.
Oh, whoa! I see
Round
two here.
2 from Kyle Abear.
I see two. I see two here.
Hit them both.
Don't just stand there. Boost.
That was from last week.
Love it. And nice.
Kyle's loading us up, man. It's like a train over here.
The link to that is in the show notes. It's the Boost Bait link if you're looking for it.
Don't you want to do this, Thomas? Don't you want to get in on the
boosting?
Slinging Sats boostergram train? It's awesome.
Thomas has left the room.
No, like I said, it's a different world for me. I don't know how can I accept crypto payment on KaiOS?
We don't understand any of the details. We just give you irrational pressure to try to make you do things. That's just how it works around here.
We can show you. Okay. We can show you how to do that with wallets and everything when you're ready for it, Thomas.
Yeah, for real. Breeze Anonymous. 69 sats show donation from last week.
Ooh, nice. Thank you.
Message is simply boost. What do we got here? Dreb Scott, 10,000 sats. And he says, go podcasting.
Yeah, Dreb, thank you. Dreb Scott, man. The Bruce Wayne of podcasting 2.0. He's like, Dreb's like, can I do more? Can I change your tires? I'll do anything. I want to do more for podcasting 2.0. Dreb, you are going above and beyond, brother. Above and beyond. He's the Chapter Factory. Ooh,
the Chapter Factory.
It's a good name. It's a good name. Chapter Factory. It's a name for a band, even.
Boobury gave us through Fountain. Gave us 12,121 sats. 12121.
Ooh,
I like
nice.
it.
Thank you.
Palindrome. 1 boost, 2 boost, red boost, blue boost. Yay! That's a lyricist. We got some new names in here, by the way, too. We got. Let's see, through Fountain, we got a 3330 sats from somebody named Hornloaded.
No, Hornloaded's been around. I think it's a no agenda person, maybe.
Okay, you may finally crossed over.
Dreb was pushing boosting on No Agenda Social pretty hard, so I think he's pushing people. The Rogan appearance may start to kick in a little bit. This stuff, it comes in waves. Go slow.
Oh, Dreb, doing more, even more work. Go podcasting is what Hornloaded said.
Yeah.
Go podcasting!
Oh, here we go. Mere Mortals podcast. This is from our buddy Kyron. 4,321 sats, 4321 through Fountain. And he says, Does this hinted at company have the ability to onboard people worldwide? I would love to give specific instructions to listeners and wouldn't need to change based on location. Always sucks hearing about cool things until the end sentence is, except if you live in X. Well, I know this pain all too well. We're the world's taint. Australia, the world's taint. I like it. And albeit extremely large and testosterone filled.
Did he put that in his note?
Yes, he said, yes, he did. Australia is the extremely large and testosterone-filled taint of the world.
Hey, this is a taint, mate. Yeah. So, we actually had a meeting with said company, and which was interesting. We learned a lot about their business, and where we're at right now is, indeed, they would like to do it worldwide. I don't know if they actually have that mechanism. It seemed like they don't have it yet, but that is the intent, and we discussed that specifically.
Yeah,
and
it seemed like part of it may work, and the other, and part of it might not. So,
yeah. Well, the one part that may actually work is that what they want to do is very simple: a sign up bonus. You sign up to buy Bitcoin through them, they give you $5 free in sats right into your podcast wallet. That's the idea. So we'll have to talk about the taint territories.
Taintatories.
These guys seem like they want to move fast, so we'll keep you posted. I sure hope so. But I understand that, and I know it's one of Cridlin's biggest complaints, and it's rightly so. But this is well, there you go. This is a problem that Bitcoin solves. Everybody can use Bitcoin all over the world right now today, sending value to any podcaster anywhere in the world. And
the problem here is not the Bitcoin. The problem here is the traditional banking and financing industry.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, but you can buy Bitcoin somewhere in Australia, I presume.
Yes. Harvhat gave us 22,222 sats, row of ducks.
Oh, yes.
And he says, happy duck hunting. That's hilarious. Chad Farrow gave us 33 sats through Fountain. He says, all aboard, train's good, plane's bad. Woo woo!
Oh, shoot, man. Hold on.
Oh, you didn't have it loaded up.
No, how do I know that? Hold on a second. Here we go.
Threw you a curveball.
All aboard, train's good, plane's bad. Woo-hoo! Boost!
Anonymous through Breeze gave us a row of ducks, 2222, and he says, great new row of ducks boost jingle.
Yeah, we like it a lot.
Brian of London through CurioCaster said, he said 19,480 sats, and he says, I had to up my boost amount for that mention. Adam, thank you. I would honestly say that your words about PodPing are the best thing I've ever been told about anything I've ever built on a computer, even beyond my PhD. It means a huge amount to me.
Wow.
That was a heartfelt note from Brian.
Well, and it just so happens I do have diplomas that I hand out for these occasions. So not only was it a better feeling than your PhD, I will top it with a very nice certificate. But I meant it, Brian, and I appreciate you using the Boostagram to contribute content to the show.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian and Alex, for all the work y'all are putting into PodPing. It's killer. Are you using PodPing in any way, Thomas?
I was actually just exploring that this past week to figure out the best way to connect it to our systems. Okay. So I definitely plan to in the near future.
Hit me up with anything you need. I mean, it's all very simplistic from the consumption end, so I can give you code or whatever you need to make that happen. It's very simple. John's BRT gave us 49,490 sats through Fountain. And he says, PodSage, making up for last week. Nice. John's, you are redeemed.
That's
I officially declare you redeemed.
Yes, that's a nice dollar amount. That's good fiat fun stuff.
Brian Mozzie gave us 2222 row of ducks through Fountain, and he says, boost!
I got to record you saying that sometime because that's getting pretty good.
I'm working on it. Sir Bargy gave us 1,500 sats, and he says, Go podcasting.
Indeed. Go podcasting!
I said he. It's technically, it could be a woman. Let's see. Oh, that's Sir Bargy again. 1,500 sats. Go podcasting.
Right.
Sir Bill, 2222, a row of ducks through fountain. He says, couldn't stop laughing at the duck hunt boost jingle.
We like it too.
Yeah, you're a psychic, my friend. Signs of new growth. Interesting. Oh, I think that's the name of a podcast. Gave us 33,333 sats.
Holy crap. Very nice. Thank you.
And the message is signs of new sats. That's funny.
Sat streamer.
Sounds of new growth. I'm pretty sure that's a podcast.
Yes, sounds like it. Sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. Our buddy Cass Peeland, 3,300 sats through fountain, and he says, haha, boost you later. Okay.
Boost.
Is that Dutch?
Boost you later. No, boost you later, alligator.
Thanks for the work. Someday I need to explain my nickname, Wink. I would love to hear the nickname.
Oh, boy.
I want to hear that story.
Okay.
Adam is less enthusiastic about hearing the story
of
the nickname.
You know, the Dutch, this is just a little bit of history. When Napoleon conquered the Netherlands at the time, they made everybody register with the government, with this new tyrannical government. And the Dutch, very, very typical. They said, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, we'll register. What's your name? My name is John's son." Okay. Yeah, and so you have the weirdest names. You know, there's a lot of bakers. What's your name, Baker? You know, because the guy was a baker. What's your name? Butcher. Okay, yeah. I'm John Butcher. And so to this day, there are people with the weirdest names, like, you know, Butt Scratcher and stuff. It's really, because, you know, of course, some of these people got drunk, like, I'm going to register my name. Butt Scratcher, Pete Butt Scratcher.
Yeah, what's your name? Seymour.
And Butts. And that became Ben Dover. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that became, you know, the record. They wrote it down and everyone stuck with it. So whenever there's an explanation of a Dutch name, I kind of hold on to my hat. You never know what's coming.
It's like my grandmother. She never knew how old she was or any of her relatives were. She had to go look in. Everybody used to write it down in the Bible, in the front.
Really?
Few pages of the Bible. I don't know if there's any other country that did this, but like the first maybe 10 pages of all the family Bibles in the U.S. had a genealogy section, and you would write down your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, and when they were born. I don't know why it was that way, but it had room for that, and you would put in she'd have to go look it up. You know, she's like, I don't know, I don't remember.
She lost the Bible.
Yeah, yeah.
Man,
let's see.
That's interesting.
The fountain. This is from somebody gave us 1 sat.
Thanks. Well, hold on.
Sat streamer.
It's literally a sat streamer.
Okay. What app lets this happen?
Fountain.
A fountain. Stop that immediately.
Oscar, shut this down. But he did have a nice note. It says, thanks for having Hass McCook on the show.
That's all right. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. You know,
there's your Bitcoin community, your philanthropic Bitcoin community, everybody. Thanks for the sat.
Scott gave us 10,420 sats through Fountain.
Very nice.
He says, first, thanks to everyone, Go Podcasting 2.0.
Yeah.
Podcasts are cool.
Around 2010, I created a cannabis news and cannabis entrepreneur podcast and tried starting a cannabis podcast network called Cannabis Bee Podcast Network, Pollinating Minds.
Ooh.
It might be time to resurrect the website and gear it all around podcasting 2.0. Well, I agree.
Yeah, completely, man.
Make it happen.
I bet you a lot of people out there would support it. Because, you know, it's very hard to do ads and stuff. It's hard to even bank if you're selling weed or promoting it or talking about it. It's very difficult.
Is Jamaica a big market for KaiOS phones there, Thomas?
I'll have to check.
I don't think so.
All right.
They got Chinese crap in there. I think it's all, they got Huawei blanketed the island. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, Jamaica.
Really?
China took over Jamaica. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's join the club.
Uh-huh.
Cole McCormick gave us 333 sats through the Fountain. He says, I'm working on my shit. Okay.
All right.
That's wonderful. Good luck with that. Good luck with that, Cole. Let's see. Layman Creations, our buddy Andy Layman gave us 222 sats through Fountain. He says, Dave, thanks for making Helipad. The now almost unbroken Helipad. I will talk about that later. I love hearing the pew pew as a boost comes in. Abused is what I said.
Abuse.
I love hearing the pew pew as a boost comes in. If you have not checked out my podcast, Dudes and Dads Podcast, go to dudesanddadspodcast.com or any new podcast app. Thank you for all you do with the Podcast Index. Well, you're welcome, Andy. Thank you for the sats. Let's see. We got a couple more. Almost here through it. Got Nomad Joe gave us 500 sats. And he says, boosting to hear the cowbell. Cowbell?
Cowbell? I haven't had a cowbell in the studio for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't have a cowbell, man. I'm sorry.
How you doing, Booster?
I got that for you.
That's close enough.
Yeah, Texan.
That's pretty close. Yeah. Oh, wait. Somebody else came in. This looks like the same person that gave us 1 sat, but he gave us 2112 sats this time.
Oh,
a rush boost. Sir Pilgrim, I wonder if that's Harry Pilgrim, says, hey, Dave, help Adam. The correct way to pronounce this boost is a 2112. I'll give him a break on Rush since he grew up in Holland.
Yeah, it's a Rush boost. I know. I recognize the Rush boosts.
Don't just stand there. Boost!
Comic strip blogger, rounding it out, gave us 10,033 sats through Podfriend.
Nice.
He says, greetings to Dave Jones and to hubby of Tina the Keeper. You're welcome to so you're now known as the husband of Tina.
Oh yeah. Oh no, she's taken over. She's now a podcast star. She's got the bug. She's like making lists of topics and emailing with people and making a new album art. Oh yeah. No, I've unleashed a beast.
Well, all the 9-year-olds in my wife's name's Melissa. All the 9-year-olds in her class, in her classroom, call me Mr. Melissa. So
ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Mr. Melissa. Mr. Melissa has that cool truck.
Greetings to Dave Jones and the hubby of Tina the Keeper. You're welcome to listen to our podcast about artificial intelligence entitled AI.Cooking, read by former BBC actor Gregory William Forsyth Foreman from Kent in Old England. Just search in any podcast app for AI.Cooking to find this podcast. Yo!
Yo! And thank you to all of our boosters and our other contributors, our monthlies especially. Thank you all so much for supporting Podcasting 2.0. It's a slow grind, but the growth is really, when in doubt, zoom out. It's been spectacular what we've done so far. And from 0 to a year and a half in, the ability to do this and have this feedback loop in podcasting is extremely exciting.
Here's your cue to boost. You know you want to.
Thomas, you got time for one more question, or you got a bell?
Yeah, I got time.
I just wanted to ask you about live. I finally got the live tag situated. It's done. It's baked. I'm not touching it anymore. I'm done. So, do you have? Is there any way you think you could do like a live streaming in a KaiOS phone, or do you think it's just too limited?
Live streaming is definitely possible. I haven't looked into what it looks like under the hood. Is it HTTP live streaming HLS, or is it something else?
Well, so the spec calls for highly, here's the way the spec reads. It's like live item looks just like a regular item with just a couple of added properties, and that's a start time, an end time, and a status attribute that sit on the live item element itself. And then everything else inside of the live item tag element, all the children of it are the same identical stuff that you would find in a regular podcast item tag. And so then, but the wording around it is, we really want you to have like all 3 of these tags: an alternate enclosure, a regular enclosure, with and then a fallback content link URL that somebody could link out if the app just cannot support the stream at all. And so and then there's also wording in there that suggests, hey, even though alternate enclosure can handle lots and lots of different various codecs and transport protocols, you really kind of want to start with supporting the basics of just an MP3 stream and an MP4 stream if it's video, to try to like maximize compatibility across platforms. So that's sort of the rundown real quick.
Yeah, I would say I can definitely take a look. I'll poke around and find some folks that are supporting and see if I can test it out just on one of my devices. But I don't see if it's MPEG streaming. I don't see why it wouldn't work.
That would be so
pretty
cool.
neat to have live streaming on these devices.
That would be so cool, man.
Yeah.
Can you trigger an alert?
We can trigger push notifications. So if you had like a subscription and the subscription had a new live item coming up, we could send something that was like, hey, there's something streaming right now. Yeah,
this hot new Bollywood podcaster. Curry. Curry. Yes, he's
Curry
live. Curry is live.
Yeah, so that's how it's going to hook into. One of the ways that PodPing is going to come into this is that PodPing, the next version of it that they're about to release, is going to have
the notification thing in there.
Live notifications. So when a podcast live item, when it goes on air, so to speak, a special PodPing will go out saying it's now broadcasting. So that's the way you sort of like pass through that notification down to the device.
That would be perfect. Yeah, right now we batch notifications just as a cost saving measure, so they're not real time. But if there was a way to tap into that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely keep. We'll pilot it with this feed for sure, and then there's a couple of other feeds. I know Sir Spencer's working on it. There'll be plenty to test against within the next short period of time, I think.
Yeah, just combine that with the real-time transcript, right? We've got the support for, the SRT and the web VTT formats. It's pretty cool. You could have it live streaming and live captions.
That would be awesome.
How do I make live captions? Where do I get that from?
Shit, I don't know.
You haven't built it?
That's a good question. Maybe I'm...
This is what still on my to-do list. Once again, another board meeting where this always happens in every board I've ever been on. Every board meeting, there's always one or two items that just never get addressed. And Ryan Heiss's transcript service, I know I'm ignoring him because I don't understand what's going on. I need help understanding because I know the guy has something. I picked the hits. I'm telling you, this guy has something. Yes. I can't figure it out. So, James Cridlin, talk to Ryan Heiss, please.
Well,
Cridlin is good at this stuff. He's good at the transcripts.
I had so much notes. I have so many notes on here, and we spent the whole time talking about solar panels and
I know what is wrong with us. Water batteries. Yeah. I'm ashamed now.
All right, next week we will get into we'll get deep into tech. Promise.
Thomas Barrasso is the developer of PodLP. It's storming the emerging markets. I'm very excited for you. Very excited for podcasting. And really love that you're doing this, man. I appreciate you coming into the board today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me and all the work that you guys are doing. It's super helpful, like I mentioned, especially for a platform like us to be able to piggyback and maybe get some tags that'll help us out in the future.
Thanks. If you ever need anything at all, any help at all, PodPing, any of that jazz, just hit me up. I'm at your fingertips.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
He says that to all the girls. So unfair. That's it, everybody. Join us again next week for another board meeting of Podcasting 2.0. See you then.
You have been listening to Podcasting 2.0. Visit podcastindex.org for more information.